people love eggnog, right? Like the holidays, people like go crazy for this stuff. And if you realize how much sugar and fat was in the little
sugar, fat, cream,
shot
milk.
of eggnog, yeah,
Right.
it's a little absurd.
It's about a heart attack waiting to happen now,
It's
isn't
a heart
it?
attack in a glass.
With
Yeah,
a zinger of
like-
alcohol in there.
There you go. So
That's the
just-
cherry on top
there
for
you
the
go.
heart attack.
Exactly. So here comes the holidays. I think
Are you ready?
Celebrate and I'm ready to go. You celebrate Hanukkah, right?
I do celebrate Hanukkah, and you celebrate Christmas?
That's correct. That's correct. We're all celebrating something, though, right? And
We are.
usually,
And,
people like to celebrate food.
In my Hanukkah gathering, our whole family gets together one night. Every year we have a party at my sister's house, and we just have a lot of gifts and we have a lot of food. And I'm always in charge of potato latkes because that's a very traditional thing to have during Hanukkah.
Nice.
And usually it's a whole lot of oil because you fry them, right?
Is that how you're making them there, chef?
No. So I wanted to kind of consult with you. I actually was thinking instead of doing regular potato, I was going to do a little sweet potato latkes to spice it up this
Okay.
year. And
Well, definitely roasting them firsthand would be a better idea than not frying them.
yes, I don't.
There's definitely ways you can we like to call it Pritikinized recipes here, whether it be a traditional family recipe or something that you just want to tweak and make it even healthier than it is already. There's lots of little kind of variations you can do, just changing the cooking technique, changing some of the ingredients in there, whether you're using low fat version of a regular fat free, whatever it may be. We were talking about eggnog earlier. People love eggnog, right? Like the holidays, people like go crazy for this stuff. And if you realize how much sugar and fat was in the little
Sugar, fat, cream,
shot
milk.
of eggnog, yeah,
Right.
it's a little
It's
absurd.
about a heart attack waiting to happen now,
It's
isn't
a heart
it?
attack in a glass.
With
Yeah,
a
yeah,
zinger of
so-
alcohol in there.
There you go. So
That's the
just-
cherry on top
there
for
you
the
go.
heart attack.
Exactly.
Chef, I think I had a really good idea when you said about roasting the potatoes for the latkes. Because I spend a whole lot of time shredding the potatoes because they're like shredded and then you make them into little patties.
Yeah.
But it actually takes a whole lot of time, and I'm working a lot here at the Pritikin Center and helping all of our guests get healthier. So I think I'm just going to skip the latkes and I'm just going to go for the roasted sweet potato and call it a day.
There you go. There you go.
Healthier, easier.
Try doing a different potato, right? So don't do like the standard yams. Do like a purple sweet potato.
Purple
do like
sweet potato.
Do like a Japanese like red skin sweet potato. There's so many different variations you can do. There's just common sweet potato. Do a Cuban sweet potato, right? I mean, let's talk about something like traditional eggnog, right? We were talking about earlier between you and I, a healthy version to make it, a way to make it, a healthy recipe. And just most people probably not going to make their own. And if you are, we can talk about how to make it healthy.
Right. So you wanted to make it and I wanted to buy it.
Well, that's it. Let's talk about that.
So there's this brand, it's called Bolthouse Farms. They make a lot of salad dressings, and I didn't realize it, but they actually make an eggnog. So I was just kind of checking it out because I like that brand in general. It's definitely not 100% Pritikin, but sometimes when you need a little hack, it's a good idea in a pinch. And they make an eggnog. It uses low fat milk. It doesn't use regular milk. It doesn't use cream. They actually stick in a little bit of carrot juice in there, which I thought was interesting. And instead of using sugar, they'll use a maple syrup. So it's a little bit more of a natural sweetener in there, and they don't use a ton of it. So that's my rec for eggnog if you want a healthier version.
And it was like the healthiest version we had found for sure. I mean, I was looking up some at the same time to try to find, because I usually do make my own. I know people probably aren't going to go through the trouble to do that, because most people, when they have eggnog, it's like, okay, I had that little shot.
It's thick.
I think I'm satisfied
Very
now. But
thick.
some people love it, and they'll just drink all month long, and then maybe even into January, who knows. But anyway, if you're going to make it, don't make it with cream. If you, obviously to get the richness, you are going to require to use some egg yolk into there, which is something we usually don't use. So if you are going to incorporate egg yolks, just keep it very minimal. Most recipes might call for like 6 yolks for like about a quart of milk. If you're going to do that, first off, don't use cream, don't use half and half, don't even use whole milk. At least use like, skim milk or 1%, right?
1%, yeah.
And that way, at least the 1%, you're certainly much healthier than using cream or half and half.
Do you think you could cut the yolks with the whites and do a little bit of yolk and then the rest white? Will that
the
work?
whole flavor is like, it's almost like it's turning it richer, right? By putting the yolk, that's like kind of the purpose. It's like French vanilla ice cream. It becomes richer and like darker in color because you're putting the yolks in there. And the yolks are what's going to give it that richer kind of component.
Right.
It's really there only to kind of add the richer flavor that the yolks kind of contribute, but you have to temper them in there. It can be quite difficult for anyone who doesn't know, they don't know what tempering means or how to do it right. And then, basically all that means is you whisk up a couple of egg yolks just by themselves, and you could try putting the whole white in there, but it may scramble, and that's usually the issue. But you put a little bit of the warm milk into the actual yolk slowly to kind of warm that up slowly. Then you put that all back into the pot slowly. That's what tempering essentially is in a nutshell.
Sounds complicated,
it's a
Chef.
little tricky. So just go with Carris. They buy the Bolthouse Farm.
But one of the things that we want to touch on is why do we want to be careful of what's in the eggnog, right? We got the cream, like you said, and cream is basically saturated fat, right? So when we have too much saturated fat in our diet, what happens? We clog up our arteries and we get some plaque going on, increases our risk of cardiovascular disease. So what's the solution? We just go to the low fat or the fat free, right? And the other thing is there's a ton of sugar in eggnog. Anytime when I was looking up any of the brands of eggnog that you would get at the grocery store, the first ingredient was cream and the second ingredient is sugar. So the cream increases the saturated fat, cholesterol, and then the sugar is very processed and refined, and it can increase inflammation in our bodies, right? And any excess sugar that we have in terms of calories, it actually turns into fat. So a lot of these processed sugars that we're consuming, whether it's from eggnog or from any of these packaged foods that we're eating, the cookies and all of that during the holidays, is it really can impact our triglycerides as well. We think of triglycerides associated with fat, but basically what happens when you increase your concentrated sweets in your diet, all of that ends up turning into fat in excess. So one of the things we got to really think about is sugar also impacts our risk of cardiovascular disease, not only diabetes, which we already know. We got to be really careful with that sugar if we have any sort of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. So, a lot of the guests that come here have issues with this insulin resistance, diabetes, pre-diabetes situation. And one of the things that we need to be most careful of is the processed sugar that's occurring in a lot of these foods that we're eating that are packaged. So that's why I love talking to you, Chef, because we get away from the packaging and we get into the real ingredients, and we take away the piece of the pie that causes all this inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and also causes a rush of sugar to the brain, which makes us not able to stop eating it. So we don't want to eat it, but we eat a little bit of it, and then we basically can't stop eating it. So we got to stop the bleeding a little bit.
I mean, look, some people are going to have that self-control where it's that little tiny bite of things can be satisfied, then you can move on. But most people have trouble with that. Once you have that sip of that super sweet thing, it triggers everything else. So, we try to train your taste buds here to not crave those things as much or feel like you need those things as much, and still make the food taste healthy and good for you, and still, obviously taste great. So, one thing that we were talking about earlier as well, you and I, was what we can cook as opposed to the honey glazed ham and the bad stuff that those people might have. Hey, look, go cook 7 fishes on that night if you want to, but don't eat 7 servings of fish. Whatever you want to do. That's like Italian thing, like 7 fishes.
I'm not Italian. I didn't know that.
I have an Italian name, but I'm certainly not or Italian. So in any case, there's lots of things you can serve that are still be healthy and like a nice staple entree. One suggestion you can do is doing like a pork loin, like a whole roasted pork loin, or even a pork tenderloin. Depending on how big of a serving you need or how much people you're serving, a whole pork loin can serve a lot of people, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, but and it's lean. It's not the healthiest thing, but if you're looking for something that's going to be still healthy, like sometimes kind of more traditional, you could do that.
One of the things that I notice at the grocery store when I do look at the pork loins is a lot of times they're injected with a salt solution. So definitely tell a lot of the guests, if you are getting that for the holidays, which I do think, listen, is it Pritikin perfect? No. Is it Pritikin friendly? Yeah, I think we can introduce it sometimes in terms of getting away from a high-fat pork to a loin.
Yeah.
But I do also remind them that there's a lot of these that have the injected sodium solution. So you want to make sure that you get one that's clean and just the loin, and then you can dress it yourself.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest, like if you just get this plain pork loin with, no added salt, no added flavor, anything at all, What are some ways that we can flavor it up so it actually
But
tastes pretty good?
A simple way to give flavor to a piece of protein, whether you're using a pork loin, whether you're using a whole roasted Cornish hen, perhaps, is another suggestion.
Great idea.
Maybe even doing like a roasted pheasant, right? I mean, like, just get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Try these other kind of proteins out that are going to be still lean and healthy for you. Pork probably being borderline, but
Right.
it's,
The pheasant, though, by the way,
pheasant's good, right?
I have a guest that I work with remotely, and he's a big hunter, actually. And so I was just talking to him yesterday, and he told me that he caught, or not caught, but he killed, hunted, whatever you want to call it, a pheasant. And pheasant is actually pretty lean, but it needs some flavor.
Yeah.
So we talked about some ways to kind of flavor it up and put some like the bone broth or some chicken broth in there, lots of onions and garlic.
So we
to
actually
kinda juice
braised.
it up.
Yeah, we braised it when we served it here. We actually braised it in broth and rosemary, and it was a very flavorful dish. And that way, it gets really tender as well. We seared it off and then kind of cooked it in its own juices and some juices. But for something like a pork loin, seasoning up is definitely key, right? So put like granulated onion, granulated garlic, some paprika, maybe some salt-free lemon pepper. And then cook it with some rosemary, maybe oregano, some fresh chopped up, and then cook it in some chicken broth, right? Like
Right, to get some juices in there.
and get some of that flavor. Like wrap it up, usually probably about till maybe an hour. Wrap it in foil. That way you're trapping some juices in there, and that's not all drying out. And
Good
then uncover
idea.
it, get it crispy, but always let things rest. You always have to. If you're doing a big pork loin, it should probably cook for at least I would say maybe about 90 minutes or so. And then let it rest. You have to let it rest for the juices to settle out. So when you slice it, you have a nice piece of juicy pork.
I think it's a great idea. The other thing that I also wanted to touch on, because with holidays often comes a lot of desserts. So we got to come up with some ideas of how to make desserts a little bit healthier. So one of the other things I'm going to bring to my Hanukkah party, in addition to my sweet potatoes or my purple sweet potatoes, now that you told me, is some pumpkin cookies.
You tell me about these.
I
They
was
sound
telling you
good.
about them because my whole spiel is to make things that are very simple and easy and quick, and 5 ingredients or less. So I've got oatmeal, pumpkin, and a little bit of maple syrup. And I just make them into little cookies. I cook them for about 10 minutes, 350. Done. Delicious.
Nice,
So tell me about, I know you have a little oatmeal cookie that you got cooking over here at Pritikin for the holiday.
We have an oatmeal raisin cookie that we had, and then our dietitians took out the raisins years ago, so we never
No
really-
raisins.
So we just have oatmeal cookies now, and but they're still good. But a cookie in general is going to be high caloric, right? No matter how healthy you merely
Calorie
make
dense.
it. So calorie density is something you have to really always consider. That you still you can't just go and eat a dozen of them, right? Even a half dozen. But yeah, we have a healthy one, and we'll post that recipe online once we have it finished, and you'll see that. And it's a very flavorful, healthy cookie. But again, just be mindful what you're eating throughout the holidays, because it's very tempting to just be, kind of diving into just, what those temptations will get you into, which is usually nothing good. So try to make the proper decisions when you're eating out and eating with your friends and family.
Right. And just one last thing is that whenever you're making your foods, the more often you could use the whole food versus the processed food, you could really help yourself temper it a little bit, because the brain won't be as stimulated to want more and more. So yes, in terms of calorie density, it might be dense, but in terms of health benefit, good for blood sugar, good for cardiovascular disease. Focus on your health during the holidays. And, maybe when we get over the holidays, we could go back to our regularly scheduled program.
That sounds good. Well, I hope you folks have a great, happy holiday, and take care. And happy holiday, Merry Christmas from me, and
Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays to all.
take care, everybody.